Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Saturday, the 17th of December. So this is our final meeting webinar before the Christmas and New Year's break. The next 2 Saturdays, we will have no live webinars, but of course everyone is obviously encouraged to keep participating on our Facebook page as well as through our email group at groups.io. Groups.io, yeah, that's what it is. Don't stop, just don't look for us to be live. So wanted to talk about a couple things today, and Parima, it was definitely the result of some of the conversations that you participated in, so you figured prominently in my brain this week. Let me point out where we went with this, and I walked through it with Chris before this webinar began this morning. But we were talking about resumes, and of course in the cybersecurity career field, people are rarely, I would say almost never, hired without submission of a resume and an interview face-to-face, either personal or virtual. But there are, I can't remember hearing the last time somebody got hired simply because of who this guy is or something like that. It does happen, it can happen, but most of the time, unless you have a reputation and they've been quoting you on Newsweek or something, you can anticipate you're going to have to go through the resume and interview process. We've held a number of webinars about the interview, things to think about, things to how to present yourself, how to look, how to show your enthusiasm, how not to be viewed as a whiner, all those sorts of things. Those all work together during the interview process. But then we started talking about resumes. I reposted from last year my resume guidance, and somebody even picked it up and posted it out on LinkedIn and said, you know, this may ruffle some feathers, but here's what my cybersecurity mentorship team says about resumes. And so I'm out on LinkedIn now pointing back to us, which is fine. So Parima, we talked about resumes. You said yours is in, dire need of an update. So I started to think about it, and you saw my response, I think, in the last day or so, where I said sometimes you just have to start with nothing at all and say, what have I done, or what in my past gives me any sort of history that would be beneficial for a cybersecurity position. And in all the resumes, I mean, I think I can safely say that I have reviewed over 1,000 resumes in my time as an IT manager and a program manager for lots of different IT type jobs, including cybersecurity teams. So as I'm looking at those, I understand that there are a couple approaches that don't work really well for people who are pursuing entry-level positions. With an entry-level position, you can't say you've got extensive experience. You really can't, because you haven't done this before. So what you have to focus on is your soft skills, but then anything that you've done historically that has been part of cybersecurity, information security, configuration management, patching and update, software management, anything that says I know how to get around in an IT arena. With a resume, many people put down in their bullets, this is what I did 75% of the time. And then they get all the way down to, and this is what I did once or twice. The challenge in doing that is you're trying to draw relevant experience from a non-relevant background. So when you put your resume in the order of this is what I've done the most, it absolutely won't fit for the resume reviewer. So my suggestion is put the stuff that you've done that has cybersecurity implications as high as possible, and then once you get into your interview, you can talk about how much you did those things. Otherwise, they get lost down underneath. Yeah, and I gave this example, I think, last week where I said I asked paper or plastic 3,000 times a day. And oh, by the way, I was, their auditor for configuration management or something. They miss it. They overlook it because you don't place it prominently in your resume. So what I'm suggesting is put it up where it gets seen. And it becomes the first thing that's seen. I can remember looking at resumes many times, and it says, I was a checker at, Safeway. And I go through everything in that I was a checker experience block in about half a second. And I'm gone. I never look back there. So a resume reviewer, and we had this example, we had it as a quiz. Remember the average time a resume reviewer spends on a resume? Do you guys remember?
Was it 7 seconds, Scotty?
7.5 seconds. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, so you only have one shot. So make that shot count. Showcase the things that the interviewer or the HR person is going to be looking for. And for HR persons, they are likely going to be looking for key phrases. And that's why you put down the tools that you've worked with and that sort of thing. Totally appropriate to have those tools in there. I'm good at, or I've worked with, Splunk or whatever. Even if you've done it just at home or just took a YouTube course on it or whatever, studied on Splunk or something like that, put that high up. And never feel that the resume format has to be stacked against you. You make that resume into what works best for you and will work best for the reader. Okay? So don't feel like you're stuck into I can't say that except way down at the bottom because I only did it once or twice. Hogwash. Put it up where the interviewer will see it. And then talk about it once you get that interview. Okay? So anyway, we were talking about resumes, and then I saw something where they talked about prospective employers, usually the HR people, review your social media before they hire you. So I started to ask myself, what does my social media look like? So I went back in LinkedIn, and I clicked on me. There's something here which says me, posts and activity. And this shows everything that I've done on LinkedIn chronologically. Did this morning. I did a like on my former boss's post. I put something in there about the Cisco last week's webinar recording. I put that up. I did a like for our CIO from our organization. I put that the webinar begins in a little while. I put if you're interested and eager and want to get into cybersecurity, come see us. This was somebody I used to work with. I did a like for her. There's my former boss again. Here's talking about cybersecurity vacancies, etc. So when you look at it, how I come across can be relatively easily read, because I'm not out there shouting, death to left-handed people, or whatever, and I'm not out there saying, let's everybody, here's how you build a Molotov cocktail, or something like that. The sort of things that might take someone's review and say, is this person really what they make themselves out to be? So do this for yourself. Go out to your own. I look here at for Scotty Ward, and this shows all of my posts, my likes, my friends, my photos that I put out there for years. This one here is from 2014 or 2015, just to give you an idea. So what you have done in the past becomes part of what they see when they look for you. So make sure that what they're looking for matches with what you're trying to put yourself across as, So that's why I sort of came up with this discussion about gray hats. Now, you saw my pretty strong post about gray hats, and the words and phrases that I put in there were pretty strong. And, I start with the phrase, no gray hats. All right? So it's not only whether or not I think that I'm a gray hat, but it's also, does my history demonstrate that I look like a gray hat? Because people go out and look. You are public when you do this on social media. You're in the public. It's like you have, back in the old days, if we were living in a village and I would go put this piece of paper up on, post it up on the wall next to the sheriff's office, and say, here is stuff I think, or whatever. That becomes part of what people conceive of you. And that's why I say gray hats are not looked on very nicely. I'll give you a very quick war story. When I was working in the Pentagon, I received word that there was an extremely dangerous tool that had just been put out, like within the last 48 hours. And what I did, with my boss's permission, I took a burner computer, in other words, a computer that I was going to format as soon as I finished doing this work, and I went out to this website and I pulled down a copy of this and disconnected the laptop, reformatted it, and then from then on I used a standalone laptop and this software tool that I had downloaded. In other words, I made sure that whatever I did out there didn't follow me back into my workplace. And again, with my boss's understanding and agreement. And we started examining this tool. This does this, this does this. It's an entire suite of tools, and it's got a lot of danger here. It's, not very strong here, but it's really strong here. Here's where it can infiltrate. Here's where it can compromise. Here's where it can capture and exfiltrate information. We did a full analysis of this. And so I went back to my Pentagon military agency and said, I need to talk to somebody about this because it's brand new. And they typically didn't get their news as fresh as I was prepared to do it. I had done research on this, and I knew about it. And I came from a president's commission to the Pentagon to tell them about this. All right, so I was on a commission with Bill Clinton's team, and I was their IT guy. So anyway, I went back to the Pentagon, and I said, this is really important. And they said, well, you're not on our agenda. And I said, this is really important. I want to get the word out to as many people as I can that this is about to be used against their networked computers. And the response I got from my leadership and the people that were convening the meeting was, you didn't get it in early enough to get on our agenda. We'll see if we can fit you in. So I showed up, and I had like a number of disks. This was back in the days of floppies. I had a number of disks where I had taken that tool and put it on those disks and marked all over it, said, do not put this on any network computer. You know, this is a malicious software. Only use it for testing purposes if you use it at all. And got into this meeting, and they were like, oh, well, what's our budget, and what are we going to be doing next year for Christmas, and, you know, this sort of thing. And I'm sitting over in the corner, I was so nervous about this. And I'm like, you guys got to give me a chance to talk about this. This is going to hit our systems momentarily. And most everybody in this room has no idea it's even coming. So finally, we got to the very end, and they said, Scotty, you have 2 minutes. And I was like, okay, well. And I gave my very quick spiel. I told them about it. I said, and if anybody wants to do any local non-networked testing, here are copies of the software. And I literally tossed it out onto the center of the table. And those IT specialists jumped on those disks like they were candy at a piñata. So I said, okay, great, successful. I got the word out. I got the tool that they can use to where they don't have to go download it and mess up their networks by not practicing good hygiene. But then afterwards, some colonel said, Mr. Warren, I would like to ask you very point blank, did you just distribute malware in one of our Pentagon meetings? And I said, sir, what I did was I raised awareness because this is being used against us as we speak. And you guys wouldn't give me time to give it full clarity. So I put out copies of the software that is about to be used on them. And he didn't like that one bit. I wasn't invited back. but that is a case where my boss was okay with what I was doing, but then I took it somewhere else and they weren't okay with it. So in that particular activity, even though I was trying to get the word out, I did it in a manner that was not white hat. I wasn't doing it for ethical reasons. I was doing it because I was a little bit worried that they were going to get compromised. And this was a monstrously bad package. And this was back in the day when we didn't have computer emergency response teams. The Army and the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines and the Coast Guard all brought their CERT team leaders to talk to this presidential commission. And they said, here's what we do. And the president's commission, turned around and said, oh, these guys need more money. They are not equipped to stand up to enemies to the DOD. So anyway, that's how U.S. CERT began as part of Homeland Security. This was prior to that. So back to gray hats. You never want to be associated with or involved in something that somebody considers to be, let's say, bad taste. You could have the best of intentions, and you can also realize that there's no better way to do it, but if there's no better way to do it and the way you're doing it is questionable, then the answer is to not do it. There is a large, I would say, surge of conversation about gray hats, and it basically says that if all you're doing is a white hat approach to cybersecurity, you are not going to be as technically strong or as detailed or as comprehensive or as helpful to your organization as if in comparison to if you took a look at gray and black hat activities. Well, my response to that is, if you're going to hire somebody, you as the employer want two things. I'll say two things. You want somebody that has the technical chops to do it, but also has the ethical chops to be able to demonstrate that they're not going to do it against you later on in a different circumstance. You have to demonstrate that you are first and foremost a white hat, not just that you're a technical expert, not that just that you're a security expert. What was that guy's name? Michael Mitnick. I think that was his name. Michael Mitnick got into, was that?
I think you have the last name correct. Fine. Go ahead, yeah. Scotty. Yep.
Stephen Mitnick, whatever. Mitnick was his name. And he was literally jailed and prohibited from connecting to networks, the internet, in fact. He was banned from the internet for something like 5 years. And the reason was he was, Kevin, okay, thank you. The reason was he was doing things, but he was doing things in a manner that made employers and governments uneasy, because he would go and hack a network and then go into the bosses of the network and say, look, your network's not strong enough, do you want to hire me? And they're like, no, I want to prosecute you for hacking into my network. Kevin Mitnick now is a renowned cybersecurity expert, but he comes across as being somebody who is not going to do some of the things that he used to do very easily in his past and was put in jail because of it. You don't want to be one of those people. Chris and I were just talking about Kaspersky and TikTok, in fact. The background of Kaspersky looks really good. I quote them. You saw my quote. Kaspersky, they have a lot of good, solid foundations. The bad thing about Kaspersky, which is why the U.S. government banned them, because they're headquartered in Russia. And Russia, at any time, can walk into Kaspersky and say, if you want to stay running, you are going to do this for us in secret. And because they are in Russia, they are part of a communist government, regardless of whether they hold elections. They are a communist government, which means if you own it, the people own it. And what's best for the people ends up being what you have to do. So Kaspersky is always under the thumb of the Russian political party. They don't want to be. They always claim they're indifferent and nothing untoward goes on through Kaspersky. But you know what? In the end, and I mentioned this to Chris, just because you're good today doesn't mean you're going to be good tomorrow. Because Kaspersky can't say that we're going to deny the Russian government if they walk in the door and tell us to spy on U.S. interests.
I would treat companies as their own separate entities, own separate countries, because they get to decide what is good for their business. not necessarily what's good for a country. That'll be my thought process on that.
Sure, that comes from a truly democratic mindset. Unfortunately, this is not a democratic world. And the challenge is they operate at the agreement of the Russian government. And if you do anything anti-Russia, you're censored, you're fired, you're jailed, or worse. So Kaspersky has to stay pro-Russia to keep alive. Same thing with TikTok. TikTok's parent company, Chris and I were talking about this morning. The TikTok's parent company is very strongly pro-China. And we watched a quick video this morning about somebody who did some experimentation out on social media and pointed out that as soon as he did something that was anti-China, skeptical of China, critical of China, all of his views in all of his videos, dozens of videos, went down by as much as 100 times, which is what, 10,000% reduction in views.
The kicker to that is he compared it to other social medias, Instagram and Facebook.
Right. Yep.
No change.
Right.
Zero change.
Right. So that's why TikTok is under scrutiny. They are not an open platform. They are a platform that is pro-China. And if you say anything bad about them, you can suddenly find that you aren't the darling of the search engines anymore. And that means that the political backing for this the parent company for TikTok, the political backing is pulling strings saying this has to be pro-China. So it's not social media, it is a political tool. And, a lot of people would claim that the same could be said about a number of U.S. media outlets or networks or, okay, great, fine, I understand there's all that. But a political tool that's used against the United States or could be used against the United States is not a good thing. So it was pretty helpful, the video that we were looking at. And again, he pointed out he's got a couple million followers, so he's not a slouch. And he basically said that when I had fewer followers, but talked about just normal stuff, I got as many as 100 times more hits than when I put out one video that was critical of China and had many more followers. I had many fewer views. So social media, just be thinking about this. Social media, just like LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, they are not 100%, how do I say this? You are not fully insulated from what you do out there. It can come back around and bite you years later, decades later. So if you were a stinker way back then, and you're a nice fresh as a daisy right now, you might see about trying to get rid of some of those old posts that you had. Just a thought. Anyway, just something to think about. Does anybody have any discussion on that? I started with resumes. I went to experience, then I went to reputation, Then I went to Gray Hats. Then I went then I went to TikTok and Kaspersky. So I hit everything. Anybody want to have something to say about it?
I would say it's not a scare tactic that Scotty's pulling off. This is just to be mindful and to be cautious of what you post out there. You never know who's reading your profile. You never know who's going to see it. Even if you set the private, things can get shared quite easily. So
Sure.
Just be mindful especially if you're looking for a job in a security setting.
Chris, I'm sure you have experienced this, and so have I. Do you have associates that shy away from social media altogether?
Oh, do I?
Yep.
Let's see. The one I would like to talk about, I have a few that I don't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who works for the Department of Defense. I cannot find her anywhere on social media. Mm-hmm. She refuses. Complete refusal.
Yep.
I have another friend, another person in my network who shares, but is upfront and says, "Hey, my opinions are my own. They're never my company's, and my company understands what I do."
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, she's up there in the pecking order in her company, but
right.
Mm-hmm. She
Right.
gets to say who's hired, who's fired, but she does not let that leak into her decisions, but she is strong in her beliefs.
Mm-hmm. So in the long run, I think it's just important that, well, I'll use a word that is not normally associated with cybersecurity at all, but it's called restraint. If you exercise personal restraint in the things you do, you shouldn't be concerned about what you're putting out on social media. But realize, like it said in the articles, 90% of prospective employers are going to go out and look at you and say, is this the type of person that I want to hire and have on my team? And that is, I will say, an extremely subjective decision. You want to please them. You don't want to have them go, and think twice about you. So I'm not saying don't post. I post, you notice I post, but then again, I am comfortable being out there because I have, hopefully, a good track record and a good reputation. I just got emails from somebody that I worked with 25 years ago saying, hey, I was at the Secure Conference in D.C., and here are all the meeting slides. I'm like, cool. You know, he sent me all the slides. They're all in PDF form. So I'm going to post them out on our email because Facebook doesn't like PDFs that much. So I'm going to put them on our email group. If any of you are not members of the email group, contact me directly and I can send it to you, or you can join the group. It's CS-Sensei plus subscribe at groups.io. And that is, I'll send that stuff out this morning if I get around to it. My plan is to do it. Don't get mad at me if I miss it by a day. But so yeah, guy that I worked with, I have not seen this guy in person probably for 12, 15 years. And he still remembered me, and he still said, you're doing this now, aren't you? Here's some stuff that I picked up. Might help you. Excellent. Thank you. You know? That's the sort of reputation you want to build. And I mentioned this, just sort of my belief is when somebody has some sort of a compromise, and this was back when I was with the service desk, but they would call me up to the Tiger teams where they'd sit down and say, what has gone on? What is affected? How is it getting in here? Et cetera, et cetera. They wanted me at the table, and I was just service desk. The reason is I kept that enterprise mindset that said it's really important that every area of our network be included in this discussion. Not just the server folks, not just the network folks, not just the storage folks, not just the firewall folks. No, everybody has to be thinking about this as, and Chris used a really good word, as an organism. They didn't attack your firewall. They attacked your organization as a whole. See what I'm saying? So you have to be thinking about that at all times. Have that broad viewpoint and never get stuck into a particular platform or software or whatever. Even if your job is working on Microsoft systems, learn Linux. If your job is working on Linux systems, learn Mac. Whatever. Just something to help you broaden your own perspective. So when you look at things, you may go, because of that M1 chip now, Apples can be subject to the same malware as PCs. True story. And if you hadn't studied it, if all you did was, I'm a Microsoft guy through and through, well, you have just possibly set your organization up to have a vulnerability in an area you didn't even know about. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Ron. Hi, Harminder. I noticed you guys came on. Do you guys have anything to pass on to the team this morning?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm okay. I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, Chris, what else did you want to cover today? What else did you have in mind?
Ooh. Put me on the spot there. Sorry. I was not expecting that. Curveball.
Fine.
I did just recently post, I was at an event last week in regards to Splunk. And one of the Splunk presenters was showing all the things he was, all the websites that he goes to collect his security data about ransomware. And it was a wealth of knowledge of the list of sites that he had. And they're logos, but you can imply from the logos what sites you can look for doing Google searches. Some of them are very popular and well-known, like Dark Reading and Security Boulevard and Bleeping Computer. But there are some new ones that I found like, whoa, cool. So something for you guys to look at. I just recently posted, so I don't know if it refreshed on your side, Scotty, or not. But
I saw it. I haven't looked at it yet.
Yep. But the conference was really interesting to listen to. It was the best way I can describe it, and I'm sorry if this comes off as negative. It's a big Splunk commercial for government employees, but if you read between the lines and then if you kind of listened in, there was some great talks, and I think two of the great talks I remember. One was a retired Navy admiral who talked about the threat landscape going on and having that threat intelligence to understand what's going on in the world. And he considered himself centrist. He worked for both the Trump administration and the Obama administration, but he didn't lean either side. He goes, I serve the American public, and that's my mission. And his mission was, first off, to drive boats around the world. He was an admiral, but he also worked in a cybersecurity aspect in the Pentagon at one point. And he just provided his knowledge, and it was a great knowledge to have, just to understand what's going on in the world and how it's a threat to your organization or your government agency, and how to protect yourself. The second one was a former FBI agent, and I liked his story because he went into the story about how he caught the Silk Road hacker. And a little background about the Silk Road hacker: this kid, just with his computer, created a website that made millions, and millions is probably I'm underestimating, of dollars, dealing drugs left and right. And they had trouble catching this guy until the speaker said, I used my background from FBI training with security and all that. And he goes, I was able to find him just by doing some simple things I've learned from my training with cybersecurity and the FBI. And he was talking with his colleagues and helping them out to catch this guy. Well, the story was the computer was encrypted and had what's called a degaussor. And what the degaussor does is once you press, it kills. It's basically a set of keys. If you press that set of keys, poof, computer might as well just use it as a brick.
Right.
And the guy, the FBI agent, said, I passed him, saw him, had the warrant in my jacket, ready to say you were under arrest, but I needed that computer for evidence in order to get the guy and done. So he followed him into a cafe, let his people know. 3 of his teammates come in. One was a 5-foot girl, and she reads the magazine. I'll tell you why she's a 5-foot girl in a moment. And then a couple walks in, who's also FBI agents. The 5-foot girl sees the couple, punches the male of the couple in the face, and goes, "You jerk." And I'm using polite language here, okay?
Right.
That caused the perpetrator to get his attention away from his computer. He was sitting with the girl, and the FBI agent, the girl, the 5-foot, slid the computer away, and the FBI agent got the computer all intact. He was able to get the keys to the kingdom for Silk Road, and that's how he was able to catch him.
Wow. So it was literally they had to do some sort of distraction. So this guy took his hands off his keyboard and they snatched the computer from him.
Because if they try to catch him and he had his hands on his keyboard and he presses the kill button, poof, it's gone.
Very cool. I did not know that. Good information.
It's great to go to these conferences. If you have the opportunity, you learn a lot of things just from the speakers, but you get to meet a lot of people. And we can talk resumes till the cows come home, but going out and meeting people and letting people know who you are is a great way to get to your goals and to your jobs of cybersecurity. And Harminder, I'm going to put you on the spot, buddy, because you and I went to a cybersecurity conference in Columbia, Maryland about a year or two ago, and you were just networking left and right. And that part I remember very deeply, and I'm wondering if that was the way you got into your role, working part-time with your job. I'm just curious about that.
Yes, I got it. On that time, I'm looking for a job. You are right.
Cool. But yeah, networking is also the way to go, and this also should be a component, not just your resume.
Very true. Very true. Okay. Well, thank you, Chris. Anybody have any comments on that? All good, solid, respectable information, Chris.
Yes, it is very good information. I really like it, and I have no idea how deep they explain everything. Just like FBI, it is very hard to catch sometimes. People are very expert nowadays.
Yep. So I do hope everyone is making plans to sign up for this 1 million CC certification course, please tell me you're thinking about it, because this is an opportunity that really can't be overlooked. You have your name, CC, which that comes from ISC2. ISC2 is the organization that possesses and manages the CISSP certification. CISSP is absolutely in the smack dab center of information security. Nearly everyone I've ever met in info security, cybersecurity work circles has a CISSP. Well, this is their next level down in terms of an entry-level cybersecurity certification. People would be silly to not put this into their win column if you are out looking for cybersecurity jobs. So if you don't remember it, it's isc2.org/1MCC, as in 1 million certified in cybersecurity courses and exams. Free course, free exam, free certification from ISC2, which has an incredibly strong following. Please, if you have any thought about a cybersecurity job, go be one of those 1 million people before they put a price on this. Okay? Chris, anything, your thoughts on this?
I'm actually going to see if I can sign up and do it, because if that's my stepping stone to the CISSP, I would love to do it.
Yep. Yep. Anybody who already has a CISSP, you're sort of past that point. You know, you're working toward specialization or becoming an engineer or something like that. But for entry level, this is absolutely perfect. Security Plus, sure, go for that one, but add this one as well.
Especially if it's free.
Especially if it's free. Yes.
I do see some fine print about number 3. I'm reading number 3, Scotty, there. Can you go back here? Yeah, once the application is complete, you become an ISC. Yep, that's normal ISC squared language, okay. Cybersecurity Online self-paced training and a cloud register for free certification exam. You'll find your access in the candidate benefits page. Additional dues of US 50 will be due at the end of your first year of your ISSC candidate status. Okay, so that's $50 as a video game to me, but anyway. Yep. Upon passing the exam, completion of the application form and payment of your $50, AMF is their annual maintenance fee for your membership. Being part of that ISC squared membership is invaluable. That $50 is to be cheap. You get connected with people who are also CISSPs. That is critical because one of the conditions of the CISSP certification is that you need someone to vouch, you or your employer to vouch for you that you know the domains there as well. So you can't just pass the exam and boom, here's your certificate like CompTIA. This is hey, you passed your exam. Now people need to sit there and say, hey, Chris knows his stuff. ISC squared, Chris knows his stuff. Please give him a certificate.
Yep. And
what they do is there's 2 parts. One's called the associate of the ISC square. That's when you're a member and you're certified, but you have to also be validated. That's right. The second part of it.
Yep. So you have to have somebody who says, yeah, I know what this person does, and they're doing it in accordance with ISC tools. By the way, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
That should not scare you off. What I'm overhearing in the industry, and this is purely rumor, and I'm sorry if I'm spreading rumors and gossip, but this is what I'm hearing. We're in such a shortage right now that if you're an associate of a CISSP, that's good enough, because there's also another part that says you have 5 years to get that. 6 if you have a pending cert. And I think Scotty's looking up what the actual thing
No, I
is.
was just looking up the code of ethics.
Yep, go for it.
Yeah. You guys, everybody here, I hope you understand that we at CyberSecurity Sensei have a code of ethics posted on our Facebook page. It is heavily borrowed from this one. So feel free to go take a look at ours or theirs and realize that's what's expected of you. It's not just, hey, I want to do tech stuff. No. Just because you're a techie, that won't get you a job. You have to come across as being someone that when someone hires you, you become a benefit to that organization. Benefit. Not just a good techie, oh yeah, he can, make a server sing. Okay. But that might also mean he can make a server cry if he's had a bad day. You want to be somebody who's viewed as an asset at all times and from every direction. Okay, good. All right, well, that's all I had for this morning. Oh, if you do have a chance, check out this one about the Russian group already having been in U.S. satellite networks. It's a good read. It points out that there's a lot of work that has to be done and a lot of old satellites out there that are vulnerable. It could be that if the flag goes up and somebody decides to literally declare cyber war on someone else, they could go up and kill all their satellites. Poof, you no longer have surveillance over us or something like that. It's possible. These satellites are put up there in the cheapest manner possible, which doesn't always take into account cybersecurity. And that's how this one was found. They use the same accounts for emergency as well as for normal use. And so they were transmitting credentials in a manner that the other folks could listen to. They monitored, and then they were able to play back and obtain access. So
hey, Scott,
good read. Yeah, Chris.
Hey, Scotty, I may have misdirected you. You had something up about CompTIA in Arizona offering as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was just something that popped up, and sadly, it's only good for Arizona. But it was free training, free certification. Also, you have to be watching for these things. This is statewide in Arizona, free. Over $6,000 in training, 17 weeks of training, like 4 hours a day with a live CompTIA instructor, and then the A+ exams. Well, number one, it's A+. Many of us already have that knowledge. Number two, it's only for 35 people in the entire state. But you know what? You could be one of those 35 if it's in your state. So you need to be watching for those sorts of things.
Apply and let them be the bad guy. That's best you can do.
Yeah.
Please look for in your state workforce offices. They are in understanding that this career field is in demand, and they're trying to help employers out with getting people there. So not only would you see CompTIA having this offer, you would also see the SANS Institute offering this as well. SANS Institute is widely recognized, widely renowned, but they are expensive. They're about $8,000 a course.
Yep.
And a certification attempt. So keep your eye out in the state workforce offices, their offerings, and see what they are. That's where you find these. I'm pretty sure that's where Scotty found that, or if he had it pop up or on his Google News feed. But put in that certification on the Google News feed and see what pops up.
Right. Yeah, that's something else, Chris. You know that the news aggregators know about you. They know what you do. They know what you look for. They know where you are. And so I put out there I'm logged in as myself, and I frequently search for cybersecurity. So guess what? They start feeding it to me. And I'm fine with that. The more opportunities I have to find something, the more I can review through things and bring to this group what I think is most pertinent and helpful. But I don't mind that this stuff just sort of shows up, like you said, in my Google News browser, because I'm logged in as me and I look for cybersecurity stuff. So guess what? They start putting more of it in there for me. Cool. Thank you.
Let the robot tell you what you want to know.
Yeah. 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 Anyway.
So Scott?
Yes.
Yes. So I have a question, sir. Can you give me the email group email ID, please?
Sure. Let me put it into our chat. It's CS-Sensei plus subscribe. You'll only send that once. Groups.io. After that, once you have subscribed, then you will just send it to CS-Sensei at groups.io. You'll omit that plus subscribe part.
Okay.
And you can just reply to somebody else's post, and your response will be sent out to everybody in the group.
Okay, thanks. Got it.
Sure. Happy to help. Anyone else? Any good news? Any great holiday plans? Anybody doing anything?
Shout out to Gloria for taking the cybersecurity certification.
Yeah, this week.
Her and wishing her well.
Yep, I'm looking forward to hearing her report if she can provide it. Again, I'm not interested, and in fact, none of us should be interested in Gloria divulging what the questions were, because that's not ethical. But what did she study? How did she do repetitive taking of a sample exam, or those sorts of things? Were there study guides? Or that's all stuff that will help you to follow in her path. But I'm very pleased. Yeah, Gloria is pulling the trigger on her certification this week, and I'm very proud of her for doing that. Yep. Okay, that's all I had, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and remember, no webinar for the next 2 Saturdays, and then when we return, we will be at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 hour earlier than what we've done in 2022. Okay?
Okay, so we don't have a class next 2 weeks.
No.
Okay, got it.
Okay?
Okay, so thank you very much, and wishing you a happy holiday and happy new everybody, and we'll see you after 2 weeks. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks.
Okay. All right, everybody. Take care.